Alright, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sam Zagar. Today we're doing a funny one. I was in my comment section yesterday. There was a comment from someone that said, "I'm not usually into this hokey garbage, but this is shockingly spot on." I laughed. I laughed really hard because let's just say I always wonder if human design's a bunch of hokey garbage. Truthfully. I'm 5 years into my experiment. I consistently am more on board with it as time goes on. I wonder less and less and less as time goes on if this is all a bunch of garbage. Human design deals with a lot of concepts that feel woo-woo, hokey, garbage, hippy-dippy, spiritual. There are nice ways to say this, there are mocking ways to say this, there are comical ways to say this. But at the end of the day, woo-woo is probably the most common phrase people use, and they're wondering, is human design just a bunch of hippie woo-woo? If you come at human design through the astrology lens, there's a much better chance it's going to come across like a bunch of hippy-dippy woo-woo whatever. If you come to human design through the quantum physics side, or through the biology side, it's going to present a lot less magical fairyland. Because when you come through quantum physics, you're coming through subatomic particles, you're coming through neutrinos. These are scientifically proven elements. And if you're coming through the biological side, you're going to encounter information about organ systems and amino acids. That information for myself, the amino acids and the neutrino for me are the anchor points in human design. They're the things that feel scientifically validated enough for me to go, yes, I can get on board with this, because there's a foundational level that we can agree on across many different scientific communities. However, as you build the information, as you experiment with the information, there's so much that has to do with consciousness, awareness, thinking, and kind of like reprogramming. It starts to feel much more philosophical, mental. In certain ways, it becomes very, very, very mental. If human design starts to feel like it's just a mental trip, there are parts of human design that can anchor you back in when you find them. Like things about how the body is the life, the body is the vehicle. Get into things like PHS, the primary health system. I am consistently going, at what point am I going to find out this is all a bunch of garbage? It just hasn't happened yet. Ra makes an excellent point about the third line profile. He says if there's a flaw in human design, the third lines will find it. I'm a third line, I'm a 3/6 profile. I haven't found the flaw in human design yet. I found a lot of flaws in how we interpret and apply the information, but I haven't actually found the flaw in human design itself yet. But I wanted this video to honestly be kind of fun for me. I wanted to riff around, play around a little bit with some of what I've been exposed to or seen or heard, and share a little bit of my perspective on that. Another thing that comes up about human design being like, is the question of, is human design a cult? This one would really get me in the beginning of my experiment, because the last thing you want to do is find out that you're one of the people that got stuck in a cult, whether they tricked you or manipulated you or you couldn't figure it out or whatever it is. I don't want to be one of those people where years later I'm like, oh god, I was in a cult and I also like brought all these other people into it. So what would make human design a cult? It's actually pretty easy for me to be like, no, it's not a cult, and these are the reasons why. In particular, the number one reason is we don't have a leader. There isn't a cult leader. All cults have leaders. The closest we would have to a cult leader would be Ra Uru Hu. He's passed away. He's not like, oh, you know, we all like go to the Church of Ra or anything like that. That's not what it is. And you know, he doesn't call himself a prophet. He doesn't believe that he's chosen by God or anything like that. He had an encounter. And he also doesn't say that he's the only one to have the encounter. He does say that he might be the only one to bring it out into the world the way that he did, or to mentally survive that experience the way that he did, or physically survive the experience the way that he did. But he was blasted with information in a neutrino stream, and the Earth was blasted with a level of information, but Ra's configuration at the time, especially being attached to his dog Barley, allowed him to get through the experience. If that story is interesting to you, again, you probably want to go over to my video, The Origin and Value of the Human Design System. There's much more information about the encounter over there. But I'm kind of going through the, like, why is it woo-woo? Why is it a cult? Like, what are the things that people say to be like, oh no, human design, I'm not gonna get into that. I laugh about the cult because we don't really have a leader. And I would say that there's source-based human design, but then there's all these like break-off groups that shifted the information to suit their own preferences or narratives. So it would almost be like there's many different, like, they'd have to be like micro cults of human design. And at that point, I'm pretty sure it's not a cult. None of us have to give all of our money to something. None of us are all like working for free for something. There's no rule about like intimacy or anything like that. Like, human design is not a cult. It's not a cult at all. Human design can present as like a weird surface level mental game in many ways, because there's a lot of thinking about how you used to see information or life or whatever, and then there's take human design and apply that to how you see your life or the world or whatever. It's a lot of like trying to delete one way of looking at things and reprogram yourself with a new way of looking at things. That can be heady, it can be confusing. And because there are so many people within human design who are excited to tell other people about human design, we often we often spread the information of human design like a game of telephone through people that are not necessarily that well educated within the system. So in the excitement of wanting to share quickly, a lot of the times it's not the most quality information that's being passed down, or the most embodied information. Now, when I say embodied, I mean like you feel this at a physical level. You live the information. It's not you know the information, it's you live it. Like, if I were to try and speak Italian to you right now, I'd have to try really hard to like change one word into another. That's not me embodying the information, that's me learning the information. When I can get myself back to Italy and I can have a conversation with someone in Italian, that's embodied in my understanding of the language. Until people are embodied in their understanding of human design, they tend to pass along the information at a bit of a reductionist surface level, which is okay, you know? But I want to acknowledge that there is a significant amount of depth to this system that, in general, a lot of people are they're just unaware of. And that's not a, it's not a fault thing. It's not a super negative thing. In the beginning of human design, I had bought the book, The Definitive Book of Human Design. And when I went through all the information in there, I was like, this is human design. I didn't realize that human design was so much bigger, that each one of these, subjects could be opened up into a much more complex system. There's so much advanced information, just getting not only into substructure in the body graph, but then getting into like the philosophy and the history and the evolution and the future. Like, human design has so much information about everything. Like, it has so much information about the biverse, which is what human design calls the universe, because uni implies one and bi implies two. And in human design, everything is a duality, everything is a binary. Human design can present pretty woo until you get deep enough into the information to understand the science behind it. But there's a lot of science behind human design. Human design is the science. And when you get very, very deep into this information, you're going to see yourself as a scientist. You will see yourself as living this experiment. This is a human design experiment. You're in your human design experiment. That was fun. I'll see you next time.